And welcome, Hoosier fans, to another disappointing episode of the Assembly Call. As today, your Indiana Hoosiers lose to the University of Louisville by a score of 87 to 78, which puts the Hoosiers 7-2 on the season. I am your host, Bob Mose, today with Ryan Phillips, and we're going to break this down for you on this edition of the Assembly Call IU Postgame Show. But let's go ahead and start the show the way that we start every show, and that is with our banner moment. And I'm going to say that this day is actually a banner moment for Indiana University athletics in so many ways. Like, for the first time in my lifetime, the basketball program and football program played on the same day, and the basketball program was the secondary event. And right now, we know with as many people are sitting up in Indianapolis right now, taking the city over, taking it by storm. A game like today can be a very disappointing start, but to kind of take the banner moment a step further, and we know that there are some people that may take away from this that it just shows how far IU has to go. I also think that we can look at this game from another lens and say, okay, at 13 minutes and 30 seconds at the first half, IU wasn't a wounded dog. IU was a dead dog, and Louisville was basically boat racing them back to Bloomington. And at some point, I think it was Tucker DeVries, it's a three-point shot, and it kind of just leveled, stopped the bleeding, and got us back to a point where we could compete for basically three-quarters of the game. And there are no moral victories. No one is going to suggest that at any given time. I think not around here, at least, and I don't think the two of us would ever even consider that as an option. But we are looking at a program that is a year behind the University of Louisville. If you look at some of Louisville's results last year, double-digit losses to teams like Duke and teams like Tennessee early in the season, and you see how they got themselves back to the tournament, and that last year, they got boat raced. I was there. I watched that game point blank with Louisville getting boat raced by Creighton out of Rupp Arena, to the delight of the fans who were in their UK gear, even though UK wasn't playing there. This is a situation where I think IU fans can say, okay, maybe let's see not where we are right now. Let's see where this thing can end up. Let's see the fact that IU did find a way to just kind of compete and get through the game. And yeah, Ryan's exactly right. This is ugly. But at the end of the day, we know at the very least that you just can't come out and drop. You just can't go out on a 16-0 run. You just can't go out there that way. And I think at this point in time, I'm going to throw it over to Ryan for his Ryan rants. Going to play a little bit of two-man game and move the ball to him going down the lane. Here you go, Ryan.
Yeah, look, I think that first half was absolutely brutal. And I know Indiana made a run or two there, but you can't start the game off against a top 10 team 16-0, especially when you're playing a neutral court that is basically more of a home game than it isn't. To start out down 16-0 is inexcusable. And if you look at the final score, you lost by 9. I realize Louisville took its foot off the gas late, but still, the margin of victory is less than that 16-0 run. What I will say is Indiana was just playing soft in the first half. Absolutely soft. They were soft with the ball. They were soft on the interior, missed how many layups or close shots because they were rushing, because they were intimidated by the size and strength of Louisville and the athleticism. That was evident. You look at the talent disparity between these teams athletically, and it is monumental. You understand that Louisville is in the second year of that process, that Indiana is now in the first year of. This is not the ideal roster for Indiana. I mean, in the transfer portal, when you're not recruiting full-time high school guys who you're going to develop and bring through, and you're not able to pick and choose, and you kind of got to take what's out there in the transfer portal, you're going to come up with guys, and you're going to add guys who are like, well, this guy's better than the alternative, but it's not perfect. And so you are going to get guys that do not fit what you want to do long-term. You're going to make do. That's the problem with full portal classes, is you're going to take what's there. You can't predict what's there. And then you're also competing with everybody else to get the guy you really want to get. So you're going to lose some of those battles, same as recruiting. So Indiana does not have an ideal roster right now. They are not strong. They are not athletic. They are not big. And the problem comes when guys like Reed Bailey can't score gets the ball in the interior one-on-one and can't even go up to go over his guy. He knows he can't. Doesn't even look at the basket. And, you have to, giving up offensive rebounds. I was shocked how few they gave up in the game because it felt like there were 50. But Indiana has to realize that even if you are not going to score, if you go up strong, you will draw fouls. There are ways to get around that lack of size, strength, and athleticism, and it's just with attitude. And the first half, just like they did at Minnesota, very soft. I will say that improved tremendously in the second half, and it was why they were able to compete and why they were able to make comebacks, is they had that. There's a level of confidence when you go strong, and not having that confidence and feeling like, oh, I'm overmatched. I mean, the thing I'll say is a lot of these guys are coming from lower divisions and coming up. And I've said all year, they have something to prove because people are going to look at them and be like, yeah, you were good, but you were good in the Sun Belt. You were good in this conference or that conference or whatever. You weren't Big Ten good. And they should have a chip on their shoulder to prove those people wrong. And today they did not. They proved those people right in the first half. Second half, again, this team's issue is not going to be fight. It's going to be attitude. And they played hard the entire game. Give them credit for that. They never gave up. We have seen teams over the last 8 years in Indiana get down 15 and give up. Get down 19, give up. This team didn't. And so credit them with that. But the switch that needs to be flipped, the light that needs to go on is they need to play aggressively and they need to play strong and they need to have the confidence that if they attack instead of absorb, they will win games that way. And when you're just absorbing what the other team's giving you on offense and defense, you're going to lose, especially when it's a good team. You can make mistakes against Bethune-Cookman. You cannot make mistakes like that against Louisville. And so it's a matter of playing aggressively, playing hard, but on top of that, playing smart. Because quite frankly, there were times where they made a run in this game and then fouled a three-point shooter. Made a run in this game, made one mistake defensively, give up a wide open three-pointer, kills all your momentum. Those things for a veteran team need to be cleaned up immediately. There's no more training wheels. The Big Ten season is underway. This is not going to be a cakewalk. And so if this team wants to turn it around, it needs a lot more of the second half than the first half. The first half can't happen again.
No, and totally spot on with this is that when you have a game like this where the first half and really it's just you drop down 16-0, you basically just allow yourself to you're going up against an opponent that's designed to prevent 8-0, 9-0 runs from happening. And you saw every game, and I mean, every time IU would get on a little spurt, there they were to kill the kill with a 3-point shot or force IU into mistakes. I mean, good example is going under McNeely too frequently throughout the game. Like, it's like that guy does one thing and one thing only. He does it incredibly well, and he shoots from beyond the arc. They're running actions to get this guy separation on the 3-point line and force you to go over. And IU, when they're ducking underneath it, really just couldn't leave him open, and the kid ends up with 15 points, 5 and 9 from 3. I mean, he didn't even take a 2-point shot all game. So yeah, I think the biggest problem as I'm kind of going into this is this is a program right now that in Indiana that is definitely, I'm seeing a lot of this in the comments that, well, some of these guys look like they were not ready. They kind of showed that their eyes got big and their heads exploded and it was just over. And we didn't see that against Marquette. And we didn't see that in the exhibition against Baylor. And we definitely didn't see it against K-State. But against Louisville today, this team looks like, you go up against a potential top 2%, 1-2 seed type team, and you damn well better be ready. And this team wasn't ready to play them. And once they figured it out, got better. The competition, they started competing, but this was a game where you're trading punches in the college basketball equivalent of a heavyweight championship fight. You got to be there for 40 minutes. You don't have 30. And you're right, Bethune-Cookman or any of the bye games or even a team like K-State, this is a different level of competition. And right now we don't look like we're at that level because, quite frankly, from a talent standpoint, we're not.
They're not.
They're not, and that's okay. At least we see the fight. At least we see the grind. At least we see them grit out. But what we're going to be looking for a week from now at Kentucky, are they going to be able to give 40 minutes and maybe poach a win? How are they going to respond when they play Penn State? I mean, I'm thinking this team, if they get the right mindset, could go in and knock and to protect their home court by 20. And that's just where we are, where it's like, okay, pack up, take your losses, go into your film rooms, see what you can do. But a lot of it does come down to that aggressiveness. And I think, the last part I'm going to say before I kind of wrap the oversight up would just be, it is things like, playing with confidence, playing with strength. How many balls were knocked out of hands in the first 10 minutes? How many balls were knocked off knees? How many times were they blocking out and forgetting to go for the basketball because they were just trying to hold their man off and forgetting to go get it, or appearing to forget to go get it? Just playing with more reckless, not even reckless, just playing with just ambition was part of it. And once they got that ambition, they figured out, okay, well, we can trade punches with these guys. But if you've been knocked to the canvas twice to start the fight, you're not going to win the fight. And today, IU didn't get knocked out, but they did lose on a very decisive decision. So that being said, I want to say that our banner moment in this opening segment today, is brought to you by our friends at Home Field Apparel, now in their 10th season sponsoring the Assembly Call, and their 4th as the presenting sponsor for the Back Home Network. Home Field has the largest collection of vintage IU apparel and excellent collections for other schools that you will find anywhere. And since IU is their flagship school, more high-quality gear with unique IU logos from the past is always right around the corner. It is time for Christmas, and if you haven't done your Christmas shopping yet and you're looking for last-minute gifts, go online to www.homefieldapparel.com. And I'm saying it's last minute because most of my shopping is done. Usually I'm a December 21st shopper, Ryan. I don't know about you. That's kind of my thing. It's like I just go, hit a few places, get my wife some nice things, and hope that everything else takes care of itself. But you can go online, especially if you're looking to use it. Go online to Home Field Apparel, www.homefieldapparel.com. Visit them at Tracks on Kirkwood and Bloomington, or at many fine retailers near you. So we don't really have the outro music because, well, I'm in command, and it's kind of like when Mr. Chekhov was running the Enterprise, and it's not a very good moment. So you're getting kind of a hybrid show. I have other ones, but it's that one seemed to be the one that would connect the most with people. I don't know.
Yeah, guys, we're kind of doing a bit of given what kind of day this is for everybody, we're doing a bit of an ad hoc show. So just it's not.
This is truncated. We wanted to give you guys some content. We wanted to talk about this, give you guys a chance to tee off in the chat, give the chat mob a chance to tee off a little bit, and give us a chance to tee off a little bit as well. But I think we kind of covered that first half. But one thing
I want to note.
Please go ahead.
Yeah, one thing I want to note on that first half, and I think that this is the stat that sums up what it was, because they were 8 of 18 on layups in the first half, and that just sums up the fact that they were getting, when they did get into the paint, they just weren't finishing strong. I mean, Alexis missed a couple, Reed missed, Bailey missed a couple. I mean, like they were getting to the places they needed to get. Now, look, they were covered. These weren't open shots. But, like, if you go up strong in those situations, you might draw a foul. And so 8 of 18 at the rim in a half is unacceptable. Just unacceptable. And that's, again, attitude. It's attitude. They had 0.75 points per possession, but you missed 10 layups. Mm-hmm. The 3 of 16 from 3, a lot of those were not great shots. I mean, because they were covered. And Louisville and Minnesota did this, and Louisville has now done this. They're setting the blueprint for how to beat Indiana. It's overplay the 3-point line and make them prove they can get by you to the hoop. And Indiana in that first half did not do that. They had more success in the second half, and getting past that first level of defense actually opens up the 3-point line, because the defense has to collapse. Then you can kick out to wide open guys. And when they did that in the second half, they were knocking them down, and they were able to have more success. You saw Nick Dorn I think he hit 5 in the game, but he hit about 3 off of kickouts. And that's Indiana's offense, but you got to be able to get past that first line of defense. And you have, and the defense also has to think that once you get past that first line, you're going to go to the rim and not just look to pass. There's got to be the threat of you scoring. And Connerway really struggled with that today. Enright, for the most part, doesn't even look at the rim. And they both need to be better at that, because they're the guys who can get by that first level. Like Wilkerson can some too, but they need to be able to prove to their opponents that they can finish at the rim, or at least get it up over the rim and in. Whether it's a short jumper or a floater or a layup, they need to be able to do that, or else the defense is just going to stay stuck on DeVries and Wilkerson out the 3-point line and not have any looks. So I think that 8 of 18 on layups really sums up what was going on with them in the first half.
And I would say going into this season, we talked a lot about the rebounding and the physicality of misses being the big concern point. But I mean, I was kind of looking at this, and I know a smart guy who who I do a podcast with also, and he talks a lot about this, where it's like, you sometimes have to take trade-offs, and this team took the trade-offs. Like last year, I think Louisville found guys who were better finishers and they did better shooters, even though they kind of stayed that course. This year, I think what DeVries did was he found better shooters who were not great rim finishers. I mean, Connor Enright, when you look at his level 1 numbers on ball screens and him taking the ball off a ball screen and trying to score, were abysmal. But you look at his hitting the roll man or hitting a kick out, he's elite. So, you have some very limited skill. You have some players with some very serious skill limits like Enright. I'm glad that he took a few more shots today, because I think that, when he starts knocking that down, and games where he knocks that down, it helps. That was a big difference between IU and Louisville today. I mean, Michael Brown was held, to 10 points, and that looks like a little better of a stat sheet, but you got to realize his first points were scored with 10 minutes to go in the second half when we fouled him. And then Pat Kelsey had to design a clear out for him to drive or to just basically get the ball and, just slam the thing down. In so many ways, IU's game plan actually looked like it was getting what they wanted, but they just didn't have really just didn't have the players to get it to be successful to the point where you're actually not just losing this game by 9 in what was a game that you were never in. It was that, yeah, and I wish I could figure out how to get this up there. I'll try. Let's show that. Yeah. I meant to do another one, sorry, but that one's a good one too. Yeah, Enright had Michael Brown in the prison the whole game. He did, and that, and that's just part of the equation. But Louisville has more role players that hit shots, and IU didn't find that until really it was Nick Dorn in the second half was that guy that kind of stepped up in those positions to be able to pull that off. So that was something I thought that was, was critical. But this first half, you go into this and you just find that you're up in hustle points. You're not getting killed on the boards where you're getting, and I still think IU, did they outscore him in the paint in the first half?
Yes.
Or was it close? It was close.
I think it was. I thought they outscored him. I'm not sure.
I think they outscored him in the first half in the paint. So I mean, you're still but even then, your scheme still looks like like there are times where you had very stagnant possessions where IU wasn't cutting. Like if you look at the difference between these two teams, like if you watch some highlights on YouTube, watch how fast Louisville's cutting through the lane, and watch how IU's cutting through the lane early in the game. One team is really just putting pressure on the backside of the defense. The other one's just moving. And when you started seeing more of that intensity off ball from Indiana, then you started seeing some more stuff opening up and some better opportunities for them in that first half. And really, it's just I even made a note of it after the going into the under 4 must cut harder, because it would just look like at times they were just cutting to cut.
It was the same. Minnesota was the same way. It was just the offense was in molasses for that first half, and it was 3 straight quarters of bad from the offense. You noted points in the paint, 14-10 IU in the first half. Never would have guessed that.
Okay.
Never would have guessed that. And I think that, I was shocked that Louisville only had 5 offensive rebounds in the first half. It felt like 20. And they only had 5 offensive rebounds, and IU had 5 offensive rebounds. So it felt like they were getting killed there, just because I think the quality of the chances, they were able to rework their offense there. But, a couple things from the first half that shocked me, and I know we're not doing the stats segment yet, but just since we're talking about it, IU had 8 turnovers in the first half. Felt about right. Louisville had 7. The problem here was in the first half, you're, what was it, 3 of 16 from 3, and that's quality shots. I mean, a lot of that is Louisville's defense was great, and Indiana was not able to counter it. But that's a big thing where they were. Louisville was 8 of 18 from 3, and you were 3 of 16 because they were getting quality looks and they were stepping into them, and you were missing defensive assignments, whatever. And again, it's just a matter of focus and feeling like you can contend with those guys. And for the first half, they look like they didn't think that they could hang with Louisville. And it wasn't a lack of effort. It was a lack of belief. And that was very evident. They just didn't have the confidence that they could beat them, that their offense was going to beat their defense and that their defense was going to beat their offense. It just, They had no confidence that was going to happen. So I think that was it. And I thought it was a different story in the second half.
It really was. I mean, I think they came out, Conaway went in to start it. And this was something I think, we can talk about Tate and Conaway as being a very, we've seen players at Indiana in the past that are very, just mercurial, that, have high highs and low lows. I think that the delta between the high highs and the low lows with Conaway is a little different. I don't think he gets fully taken out of a game mentally. Like there were some segments in the second half where he just really kind of took, especially in that first segment, just kind of sparked them defensively, sparked them some offensively. But when he just drove it in on the start and the D was just too static, there was no softening, and ends up, I think it was deflected or blocked. And at that point, that's when Indiana basically, after that, they got to stop, and then they started kind of scoring a little bit and kind of setting the tone for that second half. And they got Brown and Cotwell for Louisville with 3 fouls. And that was something. And I'm going to just put this up because I want to address this point. No, the game was never within reach. I can tell you right now, the game itself, from a result standpoint, this thing was, what we're talking about is we're talking about somebody who got smacked to the ground. We're talking to a team that just got completely blasted to the canvas, and they somehow stayed in and found a way to just compete. And we're trying to find some sort of gold nugget at the end of the trail here to kind of keep us moving into this. And that's where my thought process, Ryan and I, when we were talking about this, was like, if you're going to take a positive out of this game for IU basketball, this is the positive.
Yeah, and look, at one point, I think it was 13:40 left in the second half. They cut it to 8, and it's like 13:40 left is plenty of time. You're down 8. Louisville takes a timeout. I mean, that can go either way at that point. Could you make the miraculous comeback finish at that point? Sure. Now was it? But that was a moment in 40 minutes. So no, it was not a close game. This was probably, you look at the final score and you say, like, really, this feels like a 15 to 18 point loss. They were able to make it close at the end, and thank God for the sake of the computers. I mean, that is important. The net will rule that positively, as opposed to one of these where, the last couple of years, IU loses by 25 against a team like this. There is a positive to take away. It's not complimenting the way they played, but it's at least they did that to get it closer at the end, so it doesn't bury you when it comes, to later in the season and your net is 70 instead of 30. But no, I mean, I don't think either one of us are pretending that this was a good game for Indiana, but there were moments where they got it and it's like, okay, you've got some things going. I think the thing that's concerning, if we're moving on to the second half here, the thing that's concerning is, with 14:57 left, they got it down to 10, and then Enright fell down. They had a great defensive possession. Enright fell down with a few seconds left on the shot clock. They nail a 3 to make it 13 again. You get to stop there, a rebound. You bring it down. You can cut it to 8 with almost 15 minutes left in the game. But again, fall down on defense. Then 12:12 to go. Wilkerson made an incredible layup to make it I think it was a 9-point game. And then he fouled Conwell shooting a 3 on the other end, makes all 3. Then all of a sudden it's 58-46. It's a 12-point game. You make a stop there, 9 points. You can cut it to 7. You can cut it to 6. I mean, they had their opportunities to actually make it a game, and they never got over that hump. And usually when they made a mistake like that, it wound up not just costing them on that possession, but then it gets you out of sorts because then you're chasing the game a little bit. It's like, oh, we're down 12 now. We got to make a play. You screw up. They go down, make it 15. They make it 17. They make it 19. I mean, those moments for a veteran team, you cannot do things like that. Wilkerson fouling Conwell on a 3, unforgivable. You cannot make that guy hit the 3. He's a great shooter, but make him hit that 3. Don't give him 3 free throws. I mean, they were Louisville was 17-17 at the free throw line in the second half. I mean, that buries you giving that guy 3 free throws. And so, again, you can make those mistakes against Bethune-Cookman. You can make those mistakes against other bad teams that you will play. You can't do that against a top 10 team in the nation and expect to win. You can't do that against a Big Ten team and expect to win. The players are just too talented. And so those mistakes from veteran players, that's concerning. But Indiana had their moments where it's like, you make a right play here. You stack two good plays together. Maybe Louisville gets a little nervous, but they never got to that point. They were on the verge and never got there. So no, if anyone's asking, are we saying this wasn't a bad game? No. This was a bad game. Indiana had its chances to change that narrative and just failed numerous times largely with mistakes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, that kind of being said, we can move on to kind of talk about this from a statistical standpoint. I agree, Ryan, there were some very big surprises for me statistically in this game. One of them I think was, I've been tracking the hustle points a lot this year. Just because I know that the deficiencies on offensive on the boards is going to be a problem. And I think for IU today, that figure was actually in the positive. They were +6 points off turnovers, +13 on second chance points, which is almost
I don't know how that's possible. Well, I watched that game. I don't know how that's possible.
I mean, well, and I'll say this, like right now in a weird alternative universe, Ryan, I'm actually not here. I'm actually finishing coaching my team in a final here in Columbus. And I looked at the stats afterwards thinking, man, we must have turned it over a crap ton of times. Obviously we played really good defense and the metrics said we didn't, and especially in the fourth quarter. You stand on the sideline or you stand in this, or you sit and you watch a game and you're thinking, man, it just doesn't pass the eye test. And then you look metrically at what just happened and you go, well, maybe it did. Like we talked about the turnovers, like 5 of their turnovers happened in the first, like the first segment. I mean, they were like handing the ball over. Merry Christmas, Louisville, love IU. Go down and shoot. Go down and shoot. But you're looking at being +19 in hustle points. It tells you that these guys were we're actually competing, but it also tells you just the gulf and talent that you're dealing with between these two programs right now. I mean,
Louisville did need hustle points to win.
IU needed every ounce. They had to leave every possible bead of sweat on the floor to even have a shot at this. Had they done it for 40 minutes, you might miracle your way into a win. You did it today, so that becomes the question. But I mean, that was a critical statistic. Also, I think that was the big one for me, was just looking at that, and then also looking at overall. Just, I mean, they closed the shooting gap in that second half. I mean,
they did.
IU shot 41, they shot 46. So that
and in the I mean, was it second half? Indiana shot 51.6% from the field, but the thing is that you played much better, and Louisville still stopped 48% from the field, and from 3, 8 of 18, they mirrored what Louisville did in the first half, shot 44%, but Louisville shot 38%. I mean, it's not like they went in the tank. And then again, the free throws, you're fouling a lot, you're behind, you're chasing the game, you're going to foul a lot. Louisville, to their credit, 17-17 from the line. That buries you when you make a mistake. As far as the adjustments, it's the question there from Lisa. The chat, like, the things I saw were they were doing some reverse back screening and some things to try and get some movement. I think that helped a little. I think really what got them in the game in the second half was Tucker DeVries just attack. He just started attacking and he got fouled a lot. He shot 10 free throws. But he started, instead of attacking from the perimeter, he started getting inside the 3-point line and attacking from there and driving and trying to get one-on-ones. And he drew a lot of fouls. He's a veteran guy. He's going to do that. But I thought that was the big adjustment. And then I thought there was just more. They figured out ways to get past that first line of defense and kick it around. And they made 8 threes, 5 of those from Nick Dorn, who, thank goodness he was there, because that's 15 points solely in the second half from him that really helped keep this from getting super ugly at the end.
And I would say that, there was in that under 4 segment, there was a, Brown, a 6-0, I think defense. Well, first off, there was a 6-0 run off 2 IU turnovers. IU calls a timeout. Coming out of the timeout, they draw up a nice little set for Connor Enright. And really what Enright does is, like we were saying earlier, Enright's elite at finding kick out shooters. He hit Tucker DeVries in the corner for 3, and Tucker was wide open, and it's because they had enough action going. For just one of those times in the game where IU was actually moving without the ball, moving inside the flow concept of their offense, moving inside a set. They had some softening, and they had a strike action with Enright attacking, kick out to DeVries, wide open corner three, boom, and that stops the bleeding. So you were watching them trying throughout the game to really to really kind of adjust or to at least do something. And to get baskets. The other thing, and Ryan hit the nail on the head also with the back cuts, and really just they had an ATO with Wilkerson who did the same thing where he had that dunk, and it was kind of one of those one of the better moments of the game for IU. Defensively, I thought they did some interesting things too, especially just they putting Michael Brown in jail, and then forcing Louisville's role players to step up and beat them. And today they definitely did that. They were double digit, 10 points better, but. And that's, I think that's, I'm going to go and put your comment up, Ryan, just so everybody sees that, because that could have been a lot worse. And this is what you're trying to avoid in these situations. The adjustment.
I mean, look, yeah, if you're going to lose, if you're going to lose, yeah, if you're going to
bad,
yeah, if you're going to lose
bad,
a game like this, I know it's like a Pyrrhic victory, but close it at the end so it doesn't look as bad. Like, seriously, that's the one thing over the past couple years that we have not seen IU do when other teams put in their walk-ons or their backups. And Louisville didn't really do that. Louisville had their guys out there for most of that game because it's important to them to blow out IU as it is for IU to keep it close. But just not taking advantage of those late game situations when maybe people relax a little bit and closing that gap. And again, it's not a moral victory that it's only a 9-point loss. But it's necessary. It is absolutely necessary to your resume to close that up, just like it's necessary to blow out the bye game teams you play. And it's like, well, it doesn't matter. They won. Doesn't matter. They lost. Like whatever. No, you cannot let those teams get close at the end because it really hurts you. And just like you cannot lose by 25 to Louisville, you lose by 9. People say like, the computers especially say like, oh, all right, Louisville's a top 10 team. They're Indiana's on the back end of the top 25, going to be out of the top 25. That's fine. So again, not saying the game was great, but thank goodness it wasn't as bad as it could have been. And honestly, as bad as the mismatch was, they made it much better than the mismatch was at the end.
So, and that being said, so we know right now that people have meats in the smoker. We know right now people are coming to houses to go drink, to basically drink whatever your favorite beer, local or national brands are for an upcoming football game. Let's go ahead and move on to our game balls. And real quick, our stats.
Well, let's do some stat. Let's do stats real quick.
Oh, I thought we just did.
Well, let's dive in a little more. There's a few more. Yeah.
Before we do that, okay, we'll do that. Megan Mahaffey at Jackson Hewitt, 812-339-3344 or jacksonhewitt.com for your tax needs. Look up Megan. Huge Chat Mob fan and supporter of the show. So more stats you want to throw out there, Ryan? Yeah,
I think that, one that I want to point out is, and yeah, we did cover some stats, but I wanted to officially go in there. I think that the some crazy ones to me is offensive rebounds for the game. Indiana 10, Louisville 7. Like that. I mean, if you had told me that Louisville out rebounded, had 20 offensive rebounds and Indiana had 5, I would have believed you. The rebounding for the game, 34-34, dead even. I mean, so these, you're looking at the stats and the game looked much worse and much more of a gulf than it actually was. And part of that is Louisville's more athletic and was running more efficient offense. And that's how they were able to win this game. It wasn't the other stuff. You pointed out the hustle points as well. Turnovers, 13-13, dead even. I mean, the gap in the statistics is not as bad as the game looked, which means that Indiana should have been in this game more than they were. And some of that gets cleaned up second half when Louisville's already got a big lead. Yeah, you catch up. But looking at the game, this should have been a titanic mismatch statistically, and it wasn't. Indiana actually was a lot closer than the game looked. And so what that tells me is that talent deficiency is bigger than maybe it even looked on the court because the numbers weren't as bad as they could have been. So that's the stat I wanted to point out. We can move on to game balls too, but I wanted that to be known that the things that looked really bad for Indiana weren't as bad as, on the bottom line as they actually were. It's just that talent gulf that I think really, and Louisville, has some guys who've been in the system for 2 years and it's much smoother They have a lot more high-end talent. All of those things really affect you on the court and really affect what you're seeing.
And I would just add, this is a 74 possession game, which is exactly the type of possessions that Louisville wants to play at and Indiana wants to play at. And so when you think about that pace of play and you start thinking about, okay, so now let's quickly, before we go on to game balls, look statistically at what we're looking at here is that, you recover into over 1 point per possession on offense. You gave up 1.2. That does hits a couple of spots there on the metrics. But the big thing for IU is you're playing at a pace that you want kids to play and play at that type of pace. If you're going to make a portal hole like IU wants to run, you shoot 50% of your shots from beyond the arc.
Yeah.
You are attacking, you are slashing. You're not just trying, you're looking to get those players that are going to invest that kid. So let's say Tate Conaway gets a 6th gear. You get yourself someone who's more, again, more of a Ryan Conwell type of player. You get more of those types of players. I know Lamar Wilkerson had a rough, inefficient game, but you get those types of guys. You get more of those types of guys. Not a knock on Connor Enright at all, but you need a Connor Enright that can also add 20% of your possessions and be a scoring threat, which is exactly what Louisville did in their offseason. And you see the difference 1 year later. So that being said, we're going to go ahead and go on to our game ball and Hoosier Hustle Awards presented by our friends Allie and James at Bloom Environmental. At Bloom Environmental, they provide expert radon, mold, asbestos, and crawl space solution to protect homes and improve indoor air quality. Ryan, who you got for a game ball tonight?
Oof, this is a tough one.
It is.
Like, again, when you lose like this, and especially when you see that first half and how poorly they played in the first half, and poorly everybody played in the first half, it's really hard to pick one. So the guy I went with was Nick Dorn. I really thought that he gave them life in the second half, and it wasn't just the 5 threes he hitting, was scoring 15 points. He had 5 rebounds, and he was really a good backside rebounder in the game. The Louisville, also a team that shoots a lot of threes. You're going to get a lot of balls that go to that backside, that don't wind up in the middle of the floor, that wind up on the sides. And he really cleaned up a lot of that, had an offensive rebound as well, only a 1 turnover. He was +9 in 16 minutes. And I thought that those threes late, of course, were very key to, again, keeping this close. I thought he had that play was a scramble play where the 3-point, or where the shot clock's running down. He ran over, grabbed the ball, and just kind of fired it up. And maybe that's a little lucky, but it went in. And I will say the 2 he missed were pretty good looks that just went out. And again, you're a shooter, you're going to miss those. But he's a guy who genuinely is going to be very key to them moving forward, because this team needs usable depth. It doesn't have a lot of it. And these starters are playing a ton of minutes in the Big Ten season. When you're playing 2 games a week, 2 tough games a week, that's going to be really key to have some bench guys who can provide some depth. Dorn hit like 45% from 3 last year. He's going to be a guy that you need to get minutes from, and he needs to give you productive minutes because of how thin this team is due to injury. And I really liked seeing what he had to offer tonight, and he really stepped up and made some shots.
Dude, you could obviously Tucker DeVries. You could always you can say that, but again, this is the sort of performance you kind of come to expect from Tucker in these types of games. Why I would say that game ball for Dorn for me is interesting, and I'm going to kind of take a couple thoughts here with this. There was some time early in this game. I think if you talk about how the narrative of this game really kind of plays out of players learning to play at the level that Louisville was at. Nick Dorn, when he first came in, wasn't very effective. And then over the course of that second half, gained that confidence that we were talking about, gained that acumen that we were talking about, showed that he could compete out there, and ended up scoring 15, ended up getting the rebounds, ended up securing the rebounds. There was one where he got a rebound and the ball was just taken right from him, like he was a 5-year-old with his milk money with a bully. I mean, that's what you saw with Dorn early, and later he just grew into this. And Nick Dorn, yeah, you're right now. Before Dorn came back from injury, you were basically functionally a 7-man rotation. Dorn makes you an 8-man. Gives you an 8-man rotation, a viable 8-man rotation team, and getting him the sort of experience in this type of opponent at the end. I think Dorn was in at the end of the game, and Conaway was sitting on the bench. I don't think he fouled out. I think it was just Conaway was there because they were just getting a better result. Even though that was there, it's this is where you are with Dorn. I would say, yeah, I agree. Nick Dorn for the game ball for his first of the year.
Yeah, I think that's just an easy call, honestly, given how he played in those last 6, the second half.
And so as for our Hoosier Hustle Award, I'm going to go ahead and throw it to you, Ryan, on this one and see where we are with it.
You don't want to
We're
step
probably in the
on
same
first on
place.
this one. I'm giving it to Connor, right?
Yeah, that's kind of where I was going to. I mean, it's like almost like I'm almost. I would have fought you on Connor, honestly.
I just think he battled all game. I mean, he's not a guy who's going to fill up the stat sheet necessarily. He had 4 assists today. He did foul out, but only 3 rebounds. He only had 1 turnover. He had a steal, but I just thought his relentless defense is going to earn him a lot of game ball or a lot of hustle awards this year. I just think that's a guy who doesn't stop playing. He's a guy who may not be that skilled, may not be able to fill it up on the offensive end, but he's a guy who's going to give you the attitude you need on defense and the effort consistently and energy. And he's going to be a guy that people love to watch because he's that guy, and he's going to be the kind of guy that's really going to annoy opposing teams. But I thought he was, he gave a full, he played 34 minutes. I thought that was 34 minutes of effort tonight.
And I would also throw in with Enright, there was a key component, a key moment in the first half where IU was basically looking to just throw up the white flag of surrender and run away like the French army in 1940. I mean, he was at that point, and all of a sudden he picks up not 1 but 2. He forces Louisville into 2 offensive fouls just by being in the right place at the right time, getting his body set, taking the brunt of a charge. And in that situation where you need someone to step up and play and just start making plays when you're not making plays at all, that's pure effort. That's pure, just call it guts, call it hustle, call it gumption, whatever the hell you want to call it. That was him getting into that spot and just kind of getting turnovers at key times for Indiana to start at least trying to stop your bleeding, claw your way back in the game. So congratulations to both Nick Dorn and Connor Enright on getting our Game Ball and the Hoosier Hustle Award, and those two definitely earn their candy stripes tonight. So Ryan, it's still a great day to be a Hoosier, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I think that we can look at this and say, wow, the basketball program still has a long way to go. But you look just a little bit across town in Indy, and I think the big somebody. I want to say something really quick. Somebody asked about Trent Sisley. What's going on with Trent Sisley? He's a freshman. I mean, he's a freshman playing in big games. This is going to happen. I mean, he's it's no matter how talented he is, no matter what he played against at Montverde and all of that, he's a freshman, and he's gonna this is a guy who is going to be with the team for a long time. But I think that, I just think he's going to need time to develop, and he's going to be a bench player. He's going to have games where he looks really good because he is a skilled player with a lot of talent. But there are going to be games where he looks like a freshman, and that's going to happen, especially against these better, more athletic teams that are going to push him around a little bit.
And I'd add this real quick on Sisley, real fast on Sisley. When nobody was getting to the lane, Trent Sisley got to the lane for IU. He still chipped in. His stat sheet won't show it necessarily in his volume and his utilization, but Sisley in 17 minutes, those first minutes he played, and he getting in the lane. I think he got an and one where he finished it out, or we got a layup and finished it. So that was, I think, pretty critical, for IU there. So
yeah,
it was there.
I think that also, back to what we were saying though, I don't think there were many people who ever thought a day like this was possible for Indiana sports. I think, by the way, congratulations to the volleyball team. They're on to the Sweet 16 as well. Awesome. Amazing run by them. But you see today, Indiana playing in a top 25 matchup, although they're going to fall out of the top 25, a top 25 matchup in Indianapolis, and across town, you've got the football program playing in the game of the college football season, number 1 versus number 2 against Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. I don't think I'd ever say Indiana football Big Ten championship game in the same sentence, other than the year that the Big Ten screwed Indiana out of being in the Big Ten championship game. But I think that, I mean, just in a remarkable day for Indiana sports. And I know this one didn't turn out the way that everyone wanted to, and certainly the team needs to play far better than it did, not just against Louisville, but against anybody. But being able to look across town and see that Lucas Oil Stadium packed with Hoosiers fans, I'm sure it will be. And I know dozens of people who are there, and I wish I was going as well. I'm sure you two do too, Bob. But Um, just a big day for the athletic department. Hopefully this is, the basketball program is, we're 9 games into a coach's era. I think it's hard to draw big conclusions so far. We've seen a couple things we haven't liked. Whether that, will be the result for the entire tenure, we'll see, but it's early. But I think this is a big day, and I don't think people should overlook, how monumental this is for the program, for the school.
Agreed, Ryan. And I would be up there. I could still be up there in time for the game and try to scalp a ticket and sell a kidney to do so. But I think my wife might actually string me up on my toenails and beat me with a ball bat at this point. The 3-year-old's on the other side hitting her with mallets. So at some point we're going to have to, when we jump off, I may have to go deal with that. But that being, I think it also shows that you're never really down and out. I think a year ago at this time when IU went up against Ohio State, and we were arguing with ourselves, of can we believe that we could be, and that not just a playoff team but be a potential national championship contender coming into this year. We always had that lingering doubt that we had that during that time, that because of that Ohio State game and then eventually that Notre Dame game also just showed that we were still just a little bit down on the talent level, and just it was a bit of a gulf that we just couldn't get into a game to be able to win. That what Cignetti does in the offseason, bringing Mendoza in, Curtis Rourke would have gone down. It goes down as probably one of IU's. It goes down as IU's greatest quarterback season until we get Fernando Mendoza, and he does the exact same thing the next year. So there is something to be said for when you start getting into that top 5%, it gets harder. I don't care what sport it is, but if you're in the top 5% of college athletics inside your sport, it gets harder. And to show that Curt Cignetti took a team that was a surprise, people said flash in the pan. Everyone kind of said, well, there's a one-time deal. No, they've got Oregon, they've got Penn State, they've got Illinois. They're going to be lucky they're going to get a bowl game, but it's going to be back to the old Indiana because that schedule just doesn't jive with this. Iowa on the road too. I remember when we were all together last, we were talking about the Iowa game at Buzzkirk Chumley with Galen. And they found ways to win those games. They found ways to grit out wins, and they had enough talent to be competitive. And I think that what we're going to see tonight is this is the number 2 football team in the country, and nobody at all had them in that position to start this season. And we're here, and I think it's something that's worth us celebrating and realizing that again, it's a road back. And let's see when we're doing this in March, let's see where we are. Let's see where we are with basketball, and maybe we'll be surprised. Maybe we're looking at a team that will surprise more people. I think the start of the season surprised pundits. I think the start of the season surprised, and the metric jumps that we saw coming out of those first games showed that. But the backtrack to this is that this is still an amazing thing, and congratulations again, to the volleyball team. Everything is humming right now with IU. At least it appears as if everything just seems to be lined up in the right direction to move forward. And even on a day where you're a little bit disappointed by the basketball program, I mean, challenge this one for you. Purdue just lost by 24 at home to Iowa State, which was beautiful.
I will say Purdue feels way worse about that loss than Indiana does again for the losing to Louisville. I mean, however bad you feel about this loss as an IU fan, just oof. But I mean, that, again, not to take away from what this was. We're not trying to dumb that down. This was a bad performance by IU, and it needs to get better. But I think that, in the grand scheme, they were expected to lose by about as much as they did. Again, they made up for that late. We realized that this is a 15 to 18 point loss. It felt like, but at the same time, this could have been much worse than it was given how this game played out.
But the great news is feelings aren't stat sheets. That's the great thing at the end of the day. That
gotta love that
history is recorded. Gotta love that the eye test is not necessarily the same as what you're going to see when they're looking at this on a metric sheet later in the year. And I think that when you're looking at this, the great American poet Meatloaf said, "Well, let's just go win the big one." The great American poet said 2 out of 3 ain't bad. Purdue goes down by 23 and wins a football national championship. I'll take that as a really good day. And basketball had a metrically decent loss. So, let's just go with that. So that being said, we will go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, you got, I like,
right?
we've done a bit of a truncated show today, mostly because we want to give you guys the proper amount of time to move on from this loss and focus on the most important thing tonight, which is going to be Indiana, Ohio State. But I think that you look at the last 2 losses for Indiana, and had they beaten Minnesota and lost to Louisville the way they did, you'd be like, all right. But it's the back-to-back nature of it, I think, that's concerning. And they didn't even have to, on the road in the Big Ten, you just have to win it. You don't have to win by 10. You don't have to win by 50. Just win by 1. It doesn't matter. You feel good about stealing a loss. They're stealing a win on the road and taking a loss off the record. I think the back-to-back nature of this is what is irking people. Louisville is expected to beat Indiana. No matter where they play in the country, even if it was at Assembly Hall, Louisville will be expected to beat Indiana. It's a much better team. They're a second year in the process, all of that. It's the back-to-back nature. It's losing to Minnesota, then losing to Louisville the way they did, and especially losing to Minnesota, then coming out the way you did against Louisville. That's concerning. Going down 16-0 to start a game coming after a loss where you did not play well, that's concerning. I hope that the second half showed, okay, we finally figured some things out. Teams are overplaying the perimeter. They're bodying our guys on the perimeter. We figured out a way to get past that first level, to mix that up, get guys open, and be able to attack. They scored 51 points in the second half. So, they did figure out a way to score offense. Now, again, some people are going to point this out in the comments, and I know. Some of that was late. They did get some points late. But, again, they cut it to 8 at a chance. They cut it to 10. They figured something out to be able to attack differently, to have success. You're hoping now, maybe against hope, that when the next team tries to cut the perimeter off that way, it's going to be a very perimeter-oriented team all year. It's the nature of the roster, that they have that counter in their back pocket. We will see. I said it after the Minnesota loss. I was disappointed in it, but I'll say it after this one too. It's not about the loss. It's early in the season. It's not about the loss. It's about how you respond to it and what you figure out and how you move forward. It's going to be the same Indiana tonight. And that's true of a win or a loss. How do you respond to success? How do you respond to failure? It's going to be the same of Indiana football tonight. You're undefeated. If you lose to Ohio State, you've got the playoff right around the corner. Mm-hmm. How do you respond to that? How do you fix the gaps that led to that loss? If you beat Ohio State, how do you respond to that? Do you get too high on yourself? Do you act like that was your Super Bowl, and then do you walk into the college football playoff a little too high on yourself? And that's what sports is. Until your season is done, it is about how you respond each and every time to either success or failure. For Indiana's basketball team, they got to figure out how to respond to 2 back-to-back losses where they did not look good. And again, they cleaned some things up at the end and made this closer than it really was. Good. But they didn't look good. They didn't look good against Minnesota. How do you figure out moving forward to make sure that doesn't happen again? And we'll see. I mean, that's going to be the key to the whole season, is each time something happens, how do you find your way out of it, and how do you improve? How do you consistently improve? So I think Kurt Cignetti and the Indiana football team has been a great example of continuing to do that all season, to refocus, make it better, refocus, make it better, fix your gaps, get better. And that's how they got to the conference title game. So now we're going to turn you guys loose to go focus on that and put this one in the rear view.
One final thought, just to kind of build on that. 1 year ago, the University of Louisville lost at Atlantis to Oklahoma by 5. They were Oklahoma is up number 40 in KenPom. They come home that next Tuesday, lose to Mississippi, Chris Beard, Mississippi, 86-63 at home, and then lose to Duke at home, 76-65. Then they beat UTEP that next Wednesday, 77-74. And then again, their loss to Kentucky last year on December 14th. So teams in these types of modes do have rebuilding. Teams in these modes do have big speed bumps. Let's just hope it's a speed bump. Let's hope this is a speed bump. And if it, and we'll just see where we are in a week, 2 weeks, and see where we are after Kentucky and kind of make the assessment from there as to where does this program go from here. So on that note, Penn State, Tuesday at home, 8:30. We will have a show after that one. Not sure which one of us will be here, but someone will be here.
I'll be here.
Okay, thank God someone, yeah, because it's like I'm, you know,
Today was a mix of everybody from Assembly Call having either family stuff or being at the game. So we had thank you, Bob, for stepping in and helping
my
out.
my pleasure to be here. And do you have any more final thoughts, Ryan?
I mean, just everybody go have fun tonight. Enjoy this. I mean, this is a first for Indiana football. Enjoy it. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy the game. You know, this. How often does this come along? Never. So, I mean, make sure that you get a chance to sit somewhere and enjoy this for what it is, and appreciate everybody involved for getting it there. And appreciate someone like our buddy Galen Clavio, who for years has been talking about Indiana football through the worst times that there possibly could, and doing podcast after podcast after the program was so bad. And now he gets to go to a Big Ten championship game with an undefeated Indiana team ranked number 2 in the country with a potential Heisman Trophy winner at quarterback. Have a thought for that guy. It's he's been through a lot and he's got here. So this is, as far as I'm concerned, this is Galen's day.
It really is. And, for the long suffering of IU Football Nation, of which we are both proud members, after years of the chant of beat the spread, where we would see a game where we beat the spread, we called it a win. I remember my times in Bloomington where it's like, hey, did we just deny Penn State a potential national championship? Yes, we did. And that was that 95 season, I think, 94. So we have these, when you go from that depth to where we are today, it's just amazing to watch. I'm going to add one more thing as a final thought, just to kind of keep this in the back of your mind. And yes, we appreciate all of you fans for tuning in and listening to us, and putting up with some of the bumps along, or I'm not going to use bumps. I'm already some of the obstacles along the way. But I do want to just give a special shout out to our friends at the Indiana University Police Department. Zeus, their longtime bomb dog, who has been retired for a few years, kept you safe for many years. Crossed the Rainbow Bridge recently. He lived the rest of his life in amazing comfort with his handler Ryan and his wonderful wife Heather, and just was a very good boy. And as we're kind of celebrating tonight, we keep people, we just keep in mind so many things. But just wanted to say kind of just a brief word about Zeus and how much he meant to the IU community over the years. I mean, many of you saw him on social media, standing watch and keeping everyone safe. So thank you, Zeus, for your service and your wonderful life. And hearts go out to the IU PD community for that loss. So on that unhappy note, but I want to say thanks to Bob Thompson for the music you hear on the show, or usually hear on the show. And special thanks to John Ringer of ringdesign.com for designing the logo of the show. And a special thanks to you, the fans, for listening and being here for us in the chat, Mom. And all I'll say at this point is go Hoosiers. Goodbye, everybody.